Hello, my name is Feriha, and our presentation is Community-Driven Sustainable Mobility Innovations at Neighborhood and Urban District level in the case of the Üsküdar district. So we can start with introduction and background. The concept of co-creating mobility solutions was realized within the Cities for People project. This was a 3-year project that started in June 2017 and ended in November 2020. The project was a part of Horizon 2020 call, funded by the European Commission. The project ran simultaneously in the municipalities of 5 cities with different governance systems. The cities are Altona in Germany, Budapest in Hungary, Oxfordshire in the UK, Trikala in Greece, and Üsküdar in Turkey. So the terminology. What mobility means is transportation, including walking, driving, using public transportation, and so on. And what might come with mobility is noise and air pollution. And co-creation is a process of creating new public policies and services with people and not for them. Also, the essence of co-creation is rather than developing radical and groundbreaking solutions, co-creation shifts attention to the essence of the procedure, which is substantial empowerment and community building. The project has 4 approaches. First is people-oriented transport and mobility. It's a new way to deliver innovative, sustainable, and targeted solutions that address the needs of the public and accepted by the people. The methods allow for inclusive mobility community and introduces bottom-up procedures. For this purpose, the quadruple helix stakeholders model is used, which includes government, academia, industry, and citizens. Hence, the innovations become commonly approved by all stakeholders instead of imposing. And finally, the core outcome set, which outlines the baseline measures for the community, was used for evaluation. Second approach is citizens at the core. This is initiated by starting from real urban challenges and move towards smart solutions following procedures that are participatory. Therefore, building on strong local knowledge to understand specific conditions is essential. The people with their views and needs are the primary reference point. The term people embraces all types of stakeholders of the urban mobility supply chain, and they are the leading actors. The third approach is community empowerment. This is to empower citizens to collaborate with mobility experts, policymakers, and other urban mobility stakeholders. For this, mobility labs are established and citizens were engaged in local. This approach is an open to all, bottom-up, and community-based model to support participation. Pilot-specific citizen mobility kits were used as offline and online tools, aiming for collaborative activities. The final approach is urban sustainability, which takes into account climate change and environmental issues, socioeconomic and cultural aspects, as well as the citizens' participation in urban planning. In the project, 5 pilot areas showcase the opportunities for sustainable urban development suited to the local needs and tackled urban challenges in cost-efficient ways. They contributed to a new vision for sustainable urbanization with collaborative technologies and social innovation and increased the involvement of citizens in urban planning. The pilot area for the project was Üsküdar in Istanbul. Üsküdar has 36 kilometers square surface and it has a hilly topography. The population is over 500,000 with high number of retired citizens. Üsküdar is also one of the earliest districts of Istanbul in Turkey. The public transportation ways include metro, ferry, bus, and taxi. Mobility challenges of Üsküdar are mainly caused by the fact that it's at the intersection point of European and Asian continents. There is a considerable traffic jam. There are difficulties for pedestrians and other cars to move around. The streets are narrow and most of the roads are steep slopes. Now proceeding into the project steps, and we call this practice timeline. The Cities for People project started with the community building and citizen mobility lab was launched to start co-creating, and co-definition of mobility challenges and mobility solutions took place. Then a cycle that including prioritizing mobility solutions, generating pilot implementation plans, real-life pilot implementation, co-evaluation of piloting results, took place, and these were repeated for a scale-up, and finally, policy recommendations were achieved. And now we can look at the practice timeline steps in more detail. First is building of citizen mobility communities. The project was initialized with activities for dissemination. Later, a citizen mobility lab, a physical space as the center of the mobility community activities, was launched. The lab is for the purpose of defining mobility issues and to co-create solutions. A variety of activities took place here, and the activities were coupled with Citizen Mobility Kit to ensure engagement. So this is the Citizen Mobility Kit. The co-creation techniques from this kit and their contextual description are shared on the municipality website as well. The activities in the lab using the tools were warm-up events, interviews, online surveys, and information days. Co-creation of mobility challenges. This step is for defining the main mobility challenges and possible intervention areas with stakeholders. After the locals were introduced to the project, activities started to collect input regarding their mobility and transportation problems and generate ideas to overcome them. For this, a series of workshops and hack days took place. Also, the co-creation tools used from the Citizen Mobility Kit. At the end of these events, a group of challenges were identified. 10 common mobility challenges were chosen, and then it was decreased to 3 with the help of stakeholders. Next, solutions were co-defined with the citizens, and one solution was prioritized for each of the 3 challenges. This was again through workshops that utilized the co-creation methods. With the new fund solutions, the generation of pilot implementation plans started. This step included analyzing the chosen solutions, pilot implementation planning for each solution idea, and finally the piloting phase in the real world. So the real-life piloting implementation took place in 3 areas. First one was the Salih Solman Park. The mobility challenge was security of green areas. Pilot plan included improving the infrastructure, such as roads and lighting. Also, social activities were conducted to increase the number of visitors. Second pilot took place in Kuşoğlu Street and Yeni Dünya Street. The mobility issue was walking difficulties due to high inclination and stairs, especially for elderly and disabled people. Pilot plan introduced 6 new benches that are located on 2 streets requested by the locals. The third pilot took place in the barrier-free living center. The mobility challenge was that the sidewalks were not suitable for disabled people. Pilot plan included providing different types of paving stone for citizens to choose from. After the trial process for 2 weeks, an analysis workshop took place to decide. Here the infrastructure updates can be seen. It is newly requested pathways in the park, new benches at the requested locations, and tactile pavements. After the pilots were realized, co-evaluation of piloting results started. The results were recorded in 2 ways. One was satisfaction surveys, and another one was counting the users of the interventions. Core outcome set surveys to assess effectiveness. This online survey was conducted with the same questions before and after the pilots. Here, the results can be seen. For example, before the pilot, only 13% agreed that they can participate in the process of local transport and mobility decision-making in Üsküdar. And post-scale-up, 67% agreed to this. The next step was scale-up, which is basically replication and dissemination. For scaling up, the results of the 3 pilots were co-evaluated by experts and citizens, and online voting took place as well. Eventually, 1 pilot was chosen to be scaled up. In Üsküdar, this was improving the transportation in green areas with hilly topography. Therefore, electric cars were dedicated to be used by elderly and disabled in the new scale-up area. The final step was recording the learnings and turning them into policy recommendations. This is to educate the decision makers. It is targeted that with the new recommended policies, the urban prototypes are going to be included in urban development budget. Now the project outputs are pilots and scale-up, practice timeline, project reports, objectives achieved, and policy recommendations. Pilots and scale-up, these are the interventions and infrastructure updates that were introduced with the pilots and scale-up. they're one of the outputs. The 3 pilots and the scale-up are shown here, with the mobility challenge and the innovations. The practice timeline. It is the algorithm or roadmap of the study. The timeline is an open access resource, both in Turkish and English. The comprehensive practice timeline can be used in projects of different size and durations. And project reports. The project was recorded in form of technical reports that are published online on the project website. The technical reports consist of explanations of the works that were carried out by the cities, results, and socioeconomic impacts. Objectives achieved. There are 6 objectives achieved in the project. These are specification of the transport and mobility challenges and intervention areas, community building and provide communities with the necessary arsenal to innovate, devise new solutions, pilot the proposed solutions in the real field and scale up, create foundational framework for people-oriented transport and mobility assessment, formulate and implement a strategy and action plan for exploitation and sustainability. And to conclude, in this presentation, the results from the research and innovation project Cities for People are presented in the case of Üsküdar. The project was a novel experiment for co-creation in urban scale, and the results provides scientific evidence of applicable methods. Also, the project is a step to reach one of the UN's goals, which is make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, and the project became successful in Üsküdar. Finally, the policies recommended are ensuring public participation in decision-making phase on transportation and mobility. Second, building the community that regularly follows the project for sustainability and to establish the channels of communication. The third, ensuring the continued participation in international projects concerning productive, sustainable, and resilient cities. And 3 of the policies that are implemented in municipality of Üsküdar after the project, and their steps are detailed in this table. It's prepared considering the municipality workflow, implementation steps, responsible person, and time frame. And that's all from us. Thank you so much for listening.